I have the vocabulary now as I get older to say like, oh, this is my mission. It's my mission to help other people. And this is the way in which I can blend my skills and help.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Lotus Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Zaki. Hello and welcome to the Creative Lotus Podcast. On this week's episode, we have SARAH Barrezeueta. She is a writer and creative. Please enjoy the episode. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. So excited to be here.
So happy to have you. Thank you so much. So we were kind of chatting before, and we know each other with a long history. Not really, but it's been so great getting to know you. But for my listeners and viewers, now that we're on camera as well, I'm curious kind of if you could give us some of your personal background, maybe where you're born and raised, how you kind of got into the industry. Let's start there.
Sure. So I'm born and raised in New Jersey. Woo woo.
Okay.
Jersey girl through and through. And then I moved out to California, and that's how I met you, Alan. I moved out about 12 years ago, pursuing acting, directing, writing. I worked in New York for a while and did some stuff there. I worked for a couple of news networks, documentary, and then really wanted to transfer to narrative storytelling, which is why I moved to California. The market was just better at the time. Mm-hmm. So that was, I've always been a creative. I mean, I started dancing when I was 7 years old. I knew at 10 years old I wanted to be a performer. I would ask my parents every year for Christmas, like an agent and a headshot. Like, I don't know what 10-year-old does that. Like, I did that for a good 5 years until they were just like, it's not going to happen until you're 18. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that is that. And, I've had some success. I've, done some great indie films, have created my own content, worked at production companies. And now I'm transitioning to launching my own creative writing company that's called the SARAH Rose Agency, which is doing copywriting primarily for champions of women's health and wellness.
Amazing. That's fantastic. So I'm curious kind of, what was it like coming out to Los Angeles, going across the country and getting started here? I'm sure that you had some struggles along the way and things were maybe not the most, yellow brick road glorious as you might have seemed. And if you could share kind of some of those stories that, maybe helped you to kind of grow as a young woman coming out to LA.
A yellow brick road. It was more like a dirt road in the back of the woods.
We don't have woods here in LA, but okay. I get what you're saying.
I grew up around woods. Okay. But yeah, so I came out here. I'm not even going to say the age because I'm not going to age myself since I already said how long I've been out here. So nice try. But I came out. I was young and I knew that this is where I needed to be. And I never necessarily planned on being out here for as long as I've been out here. I basically told family and friends, I'm going for at least 3 years. By 5 years, I should definitely be bi-coastal. And like who has success in 5 years like that?
Yeah.
But I really hit the ground running. When I was in New York as a side hustle, I would bartend and cocktail waitress and things like that. So I brought those skills and hustled to Los Angeles. And when I got here, I did not have a job and I had about a month's worth of money. So I was like, I need to get a job now. And I just went up and down Hollywood Boulevard, Cahuenga, like all the big boulevards in the heart of LA, and walked in to every bar, every restaurant, and would say, hi, can I speak to your manager? I just moved here. I would always say New York because they know, I did bartend a couple times in New York, and it just sounds better than New Jersey because what do they know about New Jersey? Probably nothing. And I would say I'm from the East Coast. I'm from New York. I know how to hustle. If you ever need an extra bartender, please give me a call. I'm available. And I literally just every single one walked up and down for a couple of hours. Wow. And I got 2 calls, which was awesome. One was like a little family owned kind of wine an Italian joint, and the other one was more of a sports bar. And so I did that. for a while going on auditions. I got into a show. Like I actually like had a lot of success when I first moved out here in the theater realm of LA. So that was really exciting because that was my heart. I mean, I grew up doing theater, so that was home to me. But yeah, it was hard. I mean, I did not have a ton of money. You know, I've always kind of had to live hand to mouth. When I first was out here, just because all my extra money went to my craft. All my money went to acting classes, headshots, marketing materials, whatever, to get myself out there. So that was a lot of disappointment, a lot of harsh feedback from casting directors and agents and managers. But, you know, I truly believe that, you know, when you feel like you have a calling or something that you're meant to do, that you push through it, you know?
Yeah. What's one piece of advice that you would give to a young actor or actress, for that matter, coming out to LA and wanting to do it now in 2022, post-COVID, and, you know, trying to jump into the field of this entertainment industry?
Well, I would say that the entertainment industry has changed a lot since I first moved out here, you know, a decade ago. You know, now I think there's a couple of great things that happened to the entertainment industry because of COVID. And that is being more virtual, which you can take now. There's certain classes you can take virtually. A lot of auditions are self-tape. So for a lot of people, you might not have to live in LA. You might be able to get away with coming out for a couple of times a year, getting your feet wet, making those connections, and then making the move. So that's really amazing. There's a lot more information and tools online, which there weren't really when I first came out. The other thing that I would say is it was great that I had bartending, and bartending can be a great moneymaker, but it's definitely hard to break into that niche, career job in LA, because there's so much competition. And I wouldn't even say that it's the best, because if you're trying to do theater, you're working at night at the bar. What I would say is to find something that you can enjoy enough to give you a stable income while you're out here, whether like even if you're like a bookkeeper, or, you know, it could be something completely out of the realm of entertainment industry, but something where you can make a steady, decent income, because it's really expensive to live here, so that you can give yourself that opportunity, so that you can pay for acting classes, so that you can pay for your marketing materials, for your website, for all the networking events you want to attend. Because without that financial stability, it's going to make it a lot harder, and it's going to take you a lot longer. You know, I wish I had my other bread and butter was working in production in TV and film, which is equally as hard to break into, which is also grueling time-wise. You know, it's like if I'm on set as a producer or a director or an AD or whatever role I was filling at that time, because I did a little bit of everything, I couldn't take any acting jobs. I couldn't even do a self-tape, because most likely my schedule was insane. So it wasn't the great backup plan that I kind of thought it was going to be, when I was like, oh, I'll just know everything about the industry, and then I can work in every, aspect. And yeah, I can, but you can't do more than one at a time. So it's not a backup plan in any way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of curious, what do you consider to be maybe a personal success that you've achieved that you may not necessarily be known for?
Ooh, that's a really good question. A personal...
Or something that you take pride in, per se.
I would say that... Can I give you two things?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. One is my ability to keep putting myself out there. I feel like I have had so many setbacks that were out of my control, whether it's just like awful things that happened to the projects I was working on that I, again, out of my hands, or things, I had this other project that was starting to gain momentum, and then the pandemic hit and it kind of obliterated it. And so there's been a lot of setbacks, but with every setback I have, I've kind of tried to learn what I can from it, to grieve it in its own way, because it's your baby, and I have a baby too, but we can talk about that another time. But grieve the project, grieve the loss, the artistic loss, and then be able to move on and put myself out there again, because that's all you can do as an artist. Like, there's never going to be, and I wouldn't want one project to define me as an artist. But I would say, like, the other thing that a lot of people I don't know, it's not like wide known about me, is that I'm a poet and I love my poetry. And it's something that I did a lot when I was younger, and I recently reconnected to during the pandemic, because I had my baby in March of 2020, which was,
wow.
I don't know which changed my life more, becoming a mother or becoming a mother when the world shut down, because I think both are huge life events.
Yeah.
And I had them simultaneously. So I had to figure out a way to be creative without being physically in other places, both because it wasn't safe for the pandemic and it wasn't safe. I had this child with he was brand new and no immunity, and I didn't want to put myself in a position where I could get sick and give anything to him. So, I had to really pivot in my creativity, and I just found myself connecting with my poetry again. And it really sparked something in me and really, really got a lot of my creative juices going again. And it was something I'm excited about. It's something that I'm planning on releasing more of my poetry and having a book published, and still fine-tuning all the poems. But I mean, over the course of a year, I think I wrote about 50 poems. Wow. So it's definitely something that's significant in my life. And it's something that when I'm creatively stunted in any way, I just kind of put it, whatever I'm trying to do, on the side and just write my thoughts down, and all of a sudden it kind of comes into a poem and comes together. And it's my inner world in writing.
Wow. That's beautiful. The name of this podcast is the Creative Lotus Podcast. And as you already know, and I'm sure listeners who've been listening for a bit now know as well, but the simultaneity of the lotus flower, of kind of seeding and blooming at the same time, but really that bloom really coming from, struggle or the shit or the muck underneath is actually what gives it the ability to bloom and also seed at the same time. So I always like to ask every guest, kind of what do you consider to be kind of the struggle that you may have gone through here in Los Angeles that has ultimately led to your career kind of blossoming? I mean, you've kind of already shared a little bit about that, pivoting and everything, but I'm curious for you personally, kind of what do you see as that lotus flower blossom being of your life?
I would say for me, I hit an emotional rock bottom during the pandemic, because I think between just everything that was happening in the world and not getting any sleep and being in charge of a new human and that responsibility, I felt so emotionally drained. And I was really asking myself the questions of, is what I'm doing important? And is what I'm doing worthy of my time? Because it really shifted everything in me. So often in my adult life and in my professional career, I've had to make a lot of sacrifices on what I could and couldn't attend, because I had to be available in LA, or I couldn't afford to do that vacation or this or that because I had to pay for acting classes or a workshop or whatever. And, I think I had this really deep reflection during the pandemic and when I was creating to my poetry, and I didn't really know. I knew what I was doing wasn't working and wasn't where I should be, but I didn't exactly know where my road was going to go. So I just kind of sat in it and I waited and I was uncomfortable and I felt restless and I felt in limbo, which is something that I've never felt before because I literally from the time I was 10 years old and in my first theater show, I was like, I'm going to be a famous actress. And so to not be like, I don't think I should pursue this at this moment. I don't think it's the best time in my life to be pursuing this was a revolutionary for me. Like it really was. It was something that I was like, who am I if I'm not doing this? And so that's when I really started reconnecting to my poetry. And then, I've always been a writer, but I never identified as a writer. I wrote like over 50 articles online for this online journal, and I've created and developed TV shows and films and things like that. But I never was like, oh, I'm a writer. It was just like, okay, I do this to support my other things. Right. And a couple people had mentioned copywriting to me, and I was like, well, I don't really 100% know what that is. I don't really know how I would get into that. Like, what is it? I feel like a lot of people don't know that question. Like, I think we've talked about this before. It's not like the Library of Congress, like I'm copywriting your material so that no one steals it. Copywriting is any writing that provokes an action. So whether it's like mostly sales writing, advertising, but a lot of the articles you read online are info articles that are getting you to purchase a product or a couple of products or whatever. So it's a lot more present than you think it is. It's not just like what Don Draper did in Mad Men. Yeah. Although I'm pretty sure I could have done that job while I was like rewatching it during the pandemic. I'm like, wait, I can do this. I feel like Peggy. But yeah, I kind of looked into it more. I took a class in it. I started writing for a couple of different companies, and I found that it's something that fulfills my creativity and my nerd section of my mind. It's something I'm in complete control of, which is great because I'm type A. I can pick my clients. I can pick when I work, which is great as a mom. And it gives me that flexibility. And it also gives me the flexibility and the privilege to then have a source of income that is not my art. So my art is not reliant on making me money, which I felt like there have been compromises over the years of putting myself out there for projects or different things that I wasn't totally in love with because I was like, but it pays. Whereas now it's like anytime I do anything artistic, whether it's my poetry or a different type of creative writing, it's, or even dance, I'm a dancer. It's all just for love. It's for love. It's for my creative and artistic fulfillment. And, which is amazing. I never experienced that before. It was always like it had to look this way, and I still want to have my success in the entertainment industry. It's just right now I want to be available for my son in a way that I can't be if I'm on set for 12 hours or more. Right. So it was just a decision that I had to really look at.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you bring up a really good point, which is, sometimes in this entertainment and, creative world, we think that it has to be one way. And if we don't do that, then, it's not successful. And so then either we pivot or, you just completely exit. But I was just talking the other day with another creative for the podcast, and, they shared that, sometimes it takes, these huge directors or people that are in this industry over, 15, 20 years before a project is even like finalized, right? So I'm just curious. It seems like you have such a perseverance and determination. And I'm just curious kind of like how and what is the thing that kind of keeps you going and staying kind of on course, even if you are pivoting, right? And starting to lean into your more creative writing. And, like you said, you're going to start this, creative writing industry, agency rather. So kind of what and where does that perseverance come from for you?
I think it's always been mission based. It's never come from a selfish place as of like, oh, I have to get the glory. I mean, don't get me wrong. I absolutely love performing and I love praise. Love it. Flattery will get you everywhere with me. But more so, I've always wanted to change the world. I've always wanted to be someone that makes it better. I just want to make it better. I want it to make more peaceful. I want people to have what they need. I feel like there's so many people that are suffering needlessly because we have the resources. It's just about connecting the resources to those people. Right. And when I thought about art, the thing that really has always drawn me into art, other than the fact that I'm like a highly sensitive and emotional person that just feels like seen and heard when I'm artistic, like in my artistic bubble, but people let their guard down when they're experiencing art, whether it's in the TV and film medium or a theater or a book or a painting. They just let their guard down and they're experiencing maybe new ideas or new situations that they wouldn't have if you just even had an open dialogue with them. You know, people are willing to go to a movie about something that they know nothing about, and maybe that'll plant a seed in their mind and maybe they'll be more open-minded, or maybe that'll change the trajectory of their life. I find that most people that are in the film industry, they always have a film that's like, oh, this film made me want to make movies, or this wanted me, or I loved that I could get lost in this, or, you know, there's some kind of common ground there. So that was always my persistence, is I always felt like once I get really successful, I can make the projects that I want to make that are going to be, you know, changing the world, that are going to give a voice to the voiceless, that will give people that need jobs. And that was really my drive. And then I just kind of realized it was going to take me a lot longer to get to that level. And I didn't have that time with my son. He was not sleeping. There was a pandemic. I just didn't have the same, you know, working around the clock hamster wheel schedule to give to that I was giving previously before I became a mother. And when becoming a mother changed me so profoundly that I knew, because of my own issues with women's health, like, you know, having a hard time getting pregnant, having a really rough pregnancy, having labor issues, preeclampsia, postpartum depression and anxiety. I've had all of these things. I've had miscarriages. So I feel like I've really experienced the spectrum of gynecological issues, quite frankly. And that made me also so painfully aware that it's things that we never talk about openly in society. And they happen so frequently. And so many women have so much shame. And they're just suffering. They're just, you know, it's these things that we have to go through on our own because we can't talk about it. And it's too uncomfortable for people to hear, you know, or whatever their bag is. And so it made me also be like, I want to be a champion for women's health. I want to make a difference. Like, I don't want the answer when you ask your doctor why this happened for it to be like, well, it's common, or, you know, we'll just put you on a medication, or they just don't have the answers because there's not enough research done on it. You know, like, to me, that's inexcusable. So I wanted to use my skills, which are more artistic leaning, to help elevate people that are in the science world and are doing the work to make a difference. And that's something that I can do right now. You know, like, I can't create a film right now and be on set for 12 to 15 hours and work like a maniac, but I can support and write for companies that are making a huge difference in the women's health and wellness industry, and do that from the comfort of my own home with the flexibility that I need as a mom. So I think does that answer the question? I kind of forgot what the question was, to be honest.
It's all good. It happens. You get engrossed in it. No, it does. It definitely speaks to everything that I was asking. You know, I think if I'm okay to say it, right, your agency is the Sarah Rose Agency. And so...
Please scream it from the rooftop.
Let's go. So... I love that you're so focused as well. And I don't think that it's necessarily a niche so much as is that this is something that needs to really be talked about and written about, right? Obviously, that's the purpose of it. So, and it sounds like a very personal thing to you. And thank you so much for sharing, your own personal stories, because I think it is something that the more we do talk about it and the more we do share and the creative writing and talk about these issues, right, the less of a stigma and the less, there is around things, the more we progress, and we're really able to make huge strides and changes in society. So thank you. My next question is kind of, what do you consider to be your greatest weakness? But when you have that weakness kind of arise up, what do you do to overcome it for yourself?
Oh, cue the tools that my therapist gave me.
Thanks, therapy.
Thanks, therapy. Love you. It's a good question. Well, we're going to get real for half a second, right?
Let's do it.
So it's kind of ironic because I used to say during interviews, when you're young and they're like, oh, what's your greatest weakness? And I was always like, I'm a perfectionist. And I thought that was like the best answer. And the more that I learn about myself, the more I'm like, being a perfectionist is the worst. Like, it causes anxiety and it can lead to depression because you're comparing yourself and it's never good enough, but what's good enough? And so ironically, I was saying my truth. I just didn't realize what the truth was all along. I would still say my perfectionism is my greatest flaw. It has helped me in life because it gives me the anxiety that I get from perfectionism keeps me up at night to let me do a good job. But I also, it's been a thief of joy in my life as well, because there's always that little voice that says like, but is it good enough? Are you doing enough? Is it, is it the best it can be? And so I'm definitely my own worst critic. And I think that sometimes the standard that I hold myself to is completely unattainable. But the tools that I'm using to combat this bitch called perfectionism, right? She's a nasty bitch. And basically what I do is like, I acknowledge it. I'm like, all right, is this true? Is this true? I basically start having like an Oprah sesh with my perfectionism. And I'm like, when I feel myself spiraling, like, is this true? Like, or is this something you're telling yourself to protect? Or is this something you're telling yourself because you're scared? And I'm not perfect at perfecting perfectionism. But what I can say is looking at the distortions that I can sometimes have around a situation and my own work has been super helpful. And really having that question of like, instead of just like, wait a minute, there's a voice happening and it's telling me I'm awful and it's telling me that this isn't good enough. Is that truth? Or is that, I do this thing where I sometimes, and this is the perfectionism in me, I don't know if anyone else does this, but I do this, where not only do I compare myself, like, let's say as an actor, I'd be like, oh, I'm just not good enough. I'd be like, look at Meryl Streep. I can't do that, what she's doing. And I'm like, okay, like one of the best actresses of all time. I'm comparing myself to, she's also been acting for probably, how old am I? Like at least 30 to 40 years more than me. So it's like not really a comparison. Like, it's not accurate.
Yeah.
It's like, as a poet, I'll compare myself to like Maya Angelou, and I'm like, should I be comparing myself to her?
Not Maya Angelou. Cannot. It's so good.
She's my favorite. And so it's just, I think that's it's can be an advantageous quality to have in the sense that it really pushes me in my endeavors. And it gives me that persistence to want to be better constantly. But it also can be crippling because then it makes me feel never good enough.
Right.
So it's something that I'm trying to, like, I'm on the tightrope and trying to still figure out so that I can actually enjoy my wins more and be okay with being a work in progress all the time. See, I can't even say it because I'm like, it's not perfection.
Do we need to do another take? And say it again.
And go. Okay.
Exactly.
Work in progress. Are you really going to do another take? Because then I'll just take a sip of my drink.
No. Well, no, that being said, I think everything that you're sharing is so relatable for so many people as well. Whether you're in acting or otherwise, perfectionism is the thing. I can definitely relate myself. But talking about wins, that actually kind of leads me to my next question, which is, is there a moment that you felt as though you kind of made it? See, I can't even talk. Is there a moment that you felt like you made it? You don't think
I've made it. That's why you're stuttering. You're like, you haven't made it yet, bitch. That's why I can't get the words out.
God, I'm so done. No. I'm leaving this in. No, so I'm just curious, is there a moment that you feel like you've made it or a real highlight of your career that you really had been working towards and finally achieved that for yourself?
Where I feel like I've made it. I mean, I felt I co-created this series called The Pet Peeve Police, which you helped us out. You did a lot of the photography for, which was amazing. And I was really proud of the amount of money we got to raise for the series and what we were able to do with the amount of money we had, and its success at the festivals that we sent it to. It won a couple of awards. And so that was a really satisfying moment as a creative to see other people appreciate what I put out there. But I and I don't know if this is an artistic thing, if this is a perfectionist thing, if this is a me thing, but I kind of feel like I'm still chasing that dragon of feeling like I've made it. I don't know if I'll ever feel that way. I mean, maybe when I'm standing in like my beautiful New York City condo overlooking Central Park, I'll be like, I made it. But I don't know if I feel that way. I think I feel more satisfaction with certain things. I have more peace for where I am in my life. And I mean, I'm really proud of the fact that I had the courage to keep pursuing something. It was like, a loveless relationship between me and my art for a long time. I mean, and loveless on the art's part, not on mine. I was like a fanatic. But it took a lot of no's to even get like one yes. And so in that regard, I don't really feel like I've made the pinnacle that I kind of wanted to reach yet, but I'm really proud of what I've done. And I'm proud that I've put myself out there, that I've gone after everything that I've gone after, because a lot of people won't even do that. And I'm really proud of the fact that I, had that heart to heart with myself and really looked inward. And instead of just trudging along, trying to do the same thing that I knew wasn't working, I was like, well, what can work and what will bring me some joy and what will make the difference that I want to make? And, I'm still figuring that out. I have, my poetry that I'm trying to publish, and I have a children's book idea, and, I have some irons in the fire for sure. So that's really exciting. And I love that I'm a business owner and I have that going for me, and I love my copywriting agency, and I still feel like I'm going to change the world. It's just a matter of I'm more open to how.
Oh, yes. Very well said. Thank you so much. So with that being said, I'm curious kind of what brings you the most happiness now that you've, gone through all these trials and tribulations and, like you said, seeing rejection and also wins, versus kind of what brought you happiness when you first started out? Can you kind of see the comparison between the two and maybe your growth from that time till now?
I think when I was first starting out and anytime I got a role, as an actor or a really cool project that I got to work on, there was this feeling of elation, of like this youthful spirit of just like, yeah, I'm doing it. And just excitement. And now it's different. Like there's a different type of excitement for what I'm doing with my company because it's mine and I'm doing it 100% on my own. I'm not co-creating with someone. I'm not, working for a production company or, I'm not acting for a director. Everything is on my terms. So that's pretty exciting. I think I don't need the wins in my professional life to be happy in my personal life. Wow. And I think that I really did when I was younger. I think that I would never feel happy unless I was succeeding in my professional life or I had something that I was striving for where I felt like that was something. And, now I'm like, I have a beautiful family. I'm so grateful for our health. I'm grateful that I get to get up every day and spend time with my son and, reach out to people that I really admire and get to work with them. And that's kind of amazing. It's about finding the joy in the quiet and in like the road instead of the destination. So again, I still fight with my perfectionism on that. Like you caught me on a good day, but I would say like in general, I feel more at peace. So that, when I do have a win, it's like a great thing, but it doesn't define me,
Yeah, absolutely. I love that because I think that it's too easy to get caught up in the wins, meaning that is your happiness is based on that, right? But so much of it is about the journey and not, correlating the two as like your worth or, however you translate that for yourself. So yes, that's beautiful. So now that you have, created this agency and everything, I'm curious kind of like, what is your work ethic like? Because you're not depending on anyone else and you're really running the show, from front to end and to the back end and around the corner end. And so kind of what is a day in the life like and how do you kind of manage to stay on top of everything for yourself and, keep your creative agency going?
Did somebody say I was staying on top of myself? Because that's amazing.
Yes, your assistant sent me a note, and that's why I'm saying this. Thank you so much.
I mean, the great thing is when, shit hits the fan in life, I don't have to ask HR for a day off or scramble to figure it out. I can just be like, well, I've learned boundaries the older I get. So the type of people I work with I'm a little bit more picky because I want to work with people that I truly respect and that I know are good people and have the same sort of vision, and that if there was an emergency, they wouldn't give me grief, but be like, go do your thing. Let us know when you can be available, because that's how I operate, I kind of stand on my integrity, my kindness, and my want to make a difference. And so I expect that from the people I work with. And so in my day to day, because my income is dependent on how hard I work, it's good and bad, because there's definitely, in this field, how hard you work, you will definitely see a return in your income versus the entertainment industry where you could work like a dog for a decade and not see anything. But that's great. But it also means that, I'm starting a company from the ground up. So that means that I'm putting in a lot of hours that I'm not getting paid for. And having a toddler with no childcare at the moment, it's a lot. I get up early. I do work before he wakes up. I do work when he naps, like this podcast. And then I, do work in the evening and on weekends. And that's how I make it work right now. And the thing about that's great is like I can do the day-to-day business stuff during that time. And then, the writing I can kind of save for when I have chunks of time on the weekends. Because then my husband can watch my son. So that's what's working for me now. However, I did look at a preschool for my son, like a preschool. And I'm hoping to send him there starting September. So I'll be able to do more work-life balance and I won't have to work at all weird hours. But yeah, it's, I'm not only writing in a new genre, but I'm becoming a business owner again. And all of that is a lot of tools to learn. There's a lot of information out there and I want to do everything right. I want to bring value and great content to everyone that I work with. And so it's just taking me that time, but hopefully, every day I'm better than the day before. So, staying on top of it, we'll see. But I know I'm moving forward. Just slowly.
Yeah. It takes time. Yeah. You just,
time.
Every day making progress. It's what really matters. So I'm curious if you've learned one thing or maybe multiple things about yourself by not only being an actor and in the entertainment industry, but now as a writer, that you may have not necessarily known about yourself prior to doing the work that you do.
I think now that I'm writing and it's creating an income for me and I'm writing for other people, I'm more conscious of my responses. In the sense that before when I would send an email or something like that to friends or even work, I didn't necessarily reread it. I was just like, send, and so now I'm making sure everything sounds well, and that it's the right tone that I want to use and, that all the information is there and kind of being a lot more thorough with my communication. Because so many things can get miscommunicated. So I think that becoming writing and the business owner has made me just a lot more thorough in my communication. It's definitely something I've worked on a lot, for my adult life, but it's something that I'm even more in tune to now.
Got it. I love that. I'm curious, where do you kind of get your inspiration and creative inspiration for your writing? I know that copywriting is obviously specific to kind of a subject that you're working on, and you shared that before, but for your poetry even, where do you what gets you inspired and, helps you to kind of get that creative flow going?
Rage, depression, I don't know. Are we being
deceased? Done. Yes. Let's keep it real.
No, I think that so often in the past couple of years, between the pandemic, between all the shootings, between George Floyd, between just the horror that is the world right now, it's like a dumpster fire. It's really fueled me to put some of my anger into words that don't sound so vicious, and to get through the emotional turmoil that I'm experiencing, and to take, when I'm sitting in a feeling of hopelessness, right? I just feel overwhelmed, or I feel like, how is this happening, or why are we allowing this to happen again? That's when I have some of my best work, because it's just, the poetry is guttural. I don't write pretty poetry. I'm not like, Emily Dickinson. I'm not, it's very emo. I feel like I'm pretty good, but it's very raw, and it's, I created a Instagram profile, called La Vie Bohème Artist, and that has a couple of my poems up, and I should really be better at consistency with putting work up there. but I'm trying to also create a website that's just for my poetry. But yeah, I just think emotional heightened states or just anytime I'm feeling something encompassing, whether that's restlessness, rage, sadness, even joy. There's, that's how I can kind of put that emotion and give it a form.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think, keeping it real and using your emotions and what's going on in your environment to express how you feel through your own poetry is very kind of eye-opening for a lot of people, I'm sure, who read it, but also very relatable at the same time. So
I'm sure it's eye-opening, but I'm also sure they know that I'm not overly like an even-keeled person. Like, not in the sense that I'm unwell. It's just, no, just I'm a very sensitive person. You know me, very well. I feel everything deeply. And so it's, in a lot of ways, it's my greatest strength because it allows me to really trudge forward in the muck, when things are really hard. And it gives me this mission-based persistence, but it also like, sucker punches me a lot. Like I can't, when there's an awful thing happening in the world, I can't just go about my day like, during the Uvalde shooting, I can't just go about my day like children weren't just killed. I can't just be like, okay, now I'm going to go to the grocery store and get dinner ready. It's like, no, like we need to sit in this. Like I'm not okay. And I don't think anyone should be okay. So I think for the people that know me on a deep level, know that this is really who I am. Like, this highly sensitive, emotional person, who is fantastic at being type A and getting things done, but is pretty emotionally raw, a lot of the times. And it gives me that avenue to explore that rawness in a safe place.
Yeah, absolutely. You touch on something that I think as society, right, we've become so almost numb to these things happening. And so, I think that your sensitivity, but also your understanding and utilizing that muck, or the shit below in the struggle for society, and then feeling it yourself and then turning that into something artistic is beautiful, because I feel like a lot of people don't reflect. And like I said, too many people become numb to these situations, like these school shootings or, mass shootings or killings. And when you become so desensitized to it, how do you really kind of bring back the humanity to society? So I know that you're obviously Buddhist. That's how you and I know each other, was through our Buddhist community. But I'm curious, kind of, how does that influence you, and how does your faith kind of help you to do what you do?
I think it keeps me steady. When I'm chanting, as in Buddhist and the type of Buddhism we both practice, we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And when I'm chanting, I find a deep reservoir of just wisdom, and that's when I can really tap into the what ifs and why am I thinking this, and how do I change it, and it helps a lot with just giving me courage, because sometimes, I've sat in front of my Gohanzen, which is the mandala that we chant to. Sometimes I've, sat in front of it and I've just cried. I haven't been able to get any words out. I've just cried. But I think having that rhythm in my life, that spirituality has given me it's like a warm blanket in a sense, in a very harsh world, because I know that with my spirituality and with my Buddhist practice, I truly can face things head on, because I've gotten the answers so much. And the community that we're in, that's made up of other Buddhists, is so supportive and welcoming. And I have just made friends for life that, I don't think you see in other organizations. So I think that would be the biggest, and it's helped tremendously with my anxiety. I mean, when I'm super anxious, if I can get myself to chant and not talk myself out of it, I feel better.
Yeah. Well, you talked a few times about having kind of a mission, with the work that you're doing. So can you kind of elaborate more on that? Like, what does a mission mean to you? I think of a mission, or some people that are listening and watching, might think of a mission as like, God sent me this mission that I have, or however they may interpret that. But I'm curious for you, kind of what does your mission in this life, I guess, mean for you?
Yeah, no, it's not God. It's not, yeah. No harm there, but just, it's not, like I'm going to go to a third world country and be a white savior. It's not that thing. Don't need that energy. It's more of, I've always had this like boldness, I guess you would say, in my personality, to just like, if I see something and I think it needs to get done, I'm just going to do it, and I jump first, look at the water second kind of thing. And I've always really wanted to make things better. And like I said, change the world and have this lifetime of just good. So that I knew that when I leave this world, that I'll have left it a better place than when I entered it. And I, as much as I try to deny it, I've always had the audacity of believing that I've had the power to actually do that change. While like fighting with my perfectionism and the anxiety and all the gremlins that are in my mind and the outward worldly forces that seem to come at me like none other. But I've always been like, well, if not me, then who? And so that's always kind of, and why not me, right? Like, why not me? Why can't I? Because a lot of the whys are usually bullshit, right? They're usually just based on scarcity. So I would say that I don't remember a time when I didn't want to have this like legacy of good or this kind of warrior nature. I mean, even when I was a kid, I was like getting into fights, not because I was picking fights, but I was standing up for and taking the punches for the people that were in the fights, like trying to protect them. And I've always been that way. And so it's kind of hard for me to know when I haven't. And so I think I have the vocabulary now as I get older to say like, oh, this is my mission. It's my mission to help other people. And this is the way in which I can blend my skills and help. And so I think it's more of that. It's more, and then, as I get older and as opportunities come and go, and as I grow, I realize the ways in which I can help others and the way in which I can leave that legacy of good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's amazing. Thank you. Very well said. So on this mission that you have, who has been the number one supporter or biggest fan of yours that has really kind of helped you to keep going through all the trials and tribulations that you have gone through?
Me. I've been my biggest fan.
That's fair. That's fair.
No, I have been lucky that I have a supportive family. I have an extremely supportive husband who's always in my corner, who never tells me, I don't think you should do that. Who's always like, okay, what's it going to take? And what do you think? And is it going to make you happy? Because like at the end of his day, he just cares that I'm happy and healthy and living the life that I want to live. So whatever that looks like as far as my mission or what I'm doing, day to day, he doesn't necessarily care. Which is refreshing, honestly, because coming from the entertainment industry, there's so much competition. So to have someone that's just like, as long as you're happy, like I'll follow you into the dark kind of thing. So I have to give him a ton of credit. My parents have always been extremely supportive, as well as my sister and my friends. But as much as I love outward validation, the person that's keeping me going is me, because I'm the one calling the shots. I'm the one who's telling me when I'm done. I'm telling me when to go after things. And I think that if I didn't have this drive, it's not for my glory. It's not so don't get me wrong. I would love to win awards, like bring on the awards, bring on the cash money, but it's not why I'm doing it. I've already reached the part in me where I know that I'm a good writer. Like I know I'm a great actor. I know I'm a good writer. I know I'm a really amazing artist in a lot of different ways, and I'm creative and I can give a lot to this world. So now it's not about proving to myself that I'm good. It's just about, basically pushing myself to do the best that I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an answer? I don't know if that's the complete answer to your question, but yeah.
Absolutely.
I hold this field a lot. Like I just go on a tangent. And so sometimes I'm like, did I bring that first full circle? If I brought it full circle, but if I didn't, just let me know and I'll do some ADR work.
You're hysterical. No, it was a great answer. Yeah. And I think that you have to be the one to kind of push yourself forward, right? You own your own business, you're creating the content that you're creating, and but to have that community or those people around you who are supportive, I think is really necessary so you don't get bogged down. Or when you do get bogged down, those people are there to kind of help push you back up so you're able to kind of keep going forward again. So no, you definitely hit it right on the spot there. So I'm looking to the future now. Kind of, what are some goals that you have for the next, say, 3 to 5 years, or even 10 years from now, if we can think that far ahead?
I mean, we can. I hope I look great. I hope my skincare routine, keeps getting better.
I
actually, you want to hear my goal? I'll say it out loud. So my goal is by July 12th of 2032, so 10 years, is to have a thriving, successful business and creative empire that is valued at $5 million and above. That is my goal. And with that, I, plan on using that money to put it back into a bunch of different organizations. Something that's really important to me is children. And I think that they were important before I became a mom, but becoming a parent has really skyrocketed that importance to me. And so what I would like to do is, once I have the capital, is to really create a safe place for at-risk kids and kids that are in the foster system to be able to go and explore and learn who they are, to feel safe, to feel loved. I want to create mentorship programs. I want to have after-school programs for them where there's the arts and there's sports and they can learn, and there's career days, and I can help them, get scholarships and make friendships and feel like they have a family and feel loved. It's very important to me. and I want to do it right. I want the people that are working at this organization to be able to not worry about how their families are getting fed or their families are going to school or healthcare or anything like that. So, you know, there are numbers in my mind of, okay, this is how much people need to get paid to have a good life while they're doing this exceptional work. And yeah, the fact that there's children that don't get to be children and do not know what it feels like to be unconditionally loved truly breaks my heart. And whatever I can do to change their lives, I want to do. So that is something that I really want to do with my success and money. So I'm really working hard to get that so that I can put it there.
Amazing. That's so incredible. Yeah. I think the more we're able to help others, the more benefit it brings to ourselves, right? In the sense of like how much appreciation we are able to kind of spread, and through your own success, kind of giving back and helping others to become happy as well is so amazing. I live by that same spirit. So I'm curious, I'm like looking to my notes. I'm like, wait, where am I at?
Well, you did ask if you never sip of this Spindrift pink lemonade flavor. If you need a spokesperson,
I need to first get the sponsorship, but okay, thank you. We'll work on that. Enjoy your Spindrift sip. No, so
real
I'm sure
it tastes better. It does.
I can't. You're hysterical. So I'm curious. You know, I ask the same question every episode, and it tends to stump people. But you seem to really have a path forward and this really great goal for the next 10 years. But my question is, if you were able to talk to your future self in 15 years from now, what would you say to your future self?
What would I say to my future self? I feel like, it came into my mind. Do you remember that graduation song from like 2000? And the guy was like, and trust me on the sunscreen. That came into my mind.
Wow. That's so good.
I honestly don't know. I don't know what I would say to myself in 15 years. I would ask my 15-year self from now advice. I would say, what am I not doing in this moment that I should be doing? Mm-hmm. Or have you achieved peace? I think it would be more that. I would probably be like a selfish bitch and be like, tell me everything. But I don't know what I would, maybe I would share a memory of something that happened that day that I thought was like the best,
Okay, that's fair.
That's all I got. Sorry. That was a very short answer compared to the other ones.
Oh, so this is a good one. So what is your motto or phrase that you personally live by, if you have one?
I feel like I cycle through them. Like after I saw Dead Poets Society, I was like, carpe diem.
You and everyone else, don't worry.
Yeah, right? I was like, I'm going to tattoo it on my body like a basic bitch. I think there's a couple. One would be like, why not me? That's something that I'm saying more and more now is why not me? When I feel like I'm getting worried or nervous, or if I think to myself, well, can I do that? Like, is that too big? But then it's like, why not? The other one is, it's a Buddhist quote, and I'm just going to paraphrase, but it's, a sword is useless in the hands of a coward. And so, big paraphrase, it's much longer than that, but, it always reminds me of like, you have the tools, but you need the courage to use them. And so it reminds me to kind of get out of my head. And I think it's in line with that, why not me? You know, if you dream it, if you think it up, it's already there for you. So you just have to work hard to try to get it. So yeah, I think live with integrity, like, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, it's a really good question. There's so many, honestly, there's so many quotes that have touched my heart. And it's hard to be like, oh, well, that one is something that I live by, because it depends on what I'm going through at that time. It's okay, this really touched me. But I think, it's just really like, at the end of the day, I'm so in tune with anything that's about courage, and just to have the audacity to be that hero that you need in your own story.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful. Being the hero of your own story. I like that.
Trademark by Sarah Rose Agency.
I like it. So that actually kind of leads me to the last question I have, which is, where can people find you, and how can they follow along on your journey of both the Sarah Rose Agency as well as SARAH Barrezeueta?
Well, I know so many of you are dying for this knowledge. You've just been eagerly awaiting it this entire podcast to know how you can get in touch with me. And so on Instagram, my entertainment industry handle is at Sarah Del Pizzo, which is my maiden name, and that's my stage name. And my poetry is at La the Bohème Artist. And my agency, which is online, is sarahroseagency.com. And there you will find my articles for copywriting, my copyright work. And if you would like to hire me to write something for your company, I would love to get in touch. So that's how you can find me. I'm on all the other things too, but those are the main ones. And
fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate you sharing everything and your time, and I really do look forward to seeing you create this incredible empire that you said in the next 10 years, and really being able to give back to the community. So thank you for all of your time, and I'll see you later.
Thank you, Boo Boo.
Thank you so much to Sarah for such an incredible episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to our conversation. This week's Buddhist quote of the day is, "A person fully awakening to the jewel-like dignity of their own life is capable of truly respecting that same treasure in others," by Daisaku Ikeda. Thank you so much for listening and watching here on YouTube. Please go ahead and give us that like. It really helps out and supports. And if you would like to, go ahead and subscribe and hit that ding bell for any notifications when the new episode drops. And until then, I will say bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Creative Lotus Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Zaki. Please go ahead and subscribe, rate us, and write a review. And follow me at Alan Zaki on social media. I look forward to having more amazing creative dialogues on the next episode.